Tucker Carlson. Have you heard of this guy? I sure have. In our increasingly populist political landscape in this country, I swear to fuck I hear about Tucker Carlson all the goddamn time. And unfortunately, very often I'm hearing about Tucker Carlson from lefties. This is very frustrating for me. Tucker Carlson is a fake far-right populist. If you're interested in knowing how cucked he is by billionaires, then go watch the Vox documentary on why he pretends to hate big corporations. Please, it's so fucking good. It's excellent, okay? Go ahead, go check that out. Okay, all right? However, one of the big issues is that Tucker Carlson's form of far-right populism is very much inspired by the blue Democrat, like, pro-union working rhetoric, where Tucker Carlson will go on there and talk about how big corporations are fucking over workers and, they evade corporate responsibility while they profiteer off the suffering of the masses and what have you. Now that shit sounds really compelling to lefties, you know? They'll be like, wow, Tucker Carlson, a Fox News host, is talking about corporate greed? Wowie! This is our opportunity. We should start to build a coalition with other worker-conscious people. Okay. The issue is, Tucker Carlson is basically a white nationalist. Again, I don't want to waste my fucking time going over logs here or anything, but this dude right now, as I'm speaking, right now, is on his show talking about how BLM is trying to start a race war and how this isn't about race, this is about attacking us and we need to defend ourselves. He defends like this race war rhetoric very frequently. He is 100% a white nationalist. He's probably one of the most openly white supremacist people on the entire platform, which is pretty impressive, all things considered. So the problem is, not only is Tucker Carlson a white nationalist, or at the very least espouses white nationalist rhetoric, but his populism is fake. He's a Murdoch baby, literally. They said that in a quote. Somebody said, "You're Murdoch's bitch," and Tucker was like, oh yeah, I would be honored to be caned by Mr. Murdoch. I do whatever he tells me to. Not exactly the language of a pro-worker populist there, is it? More a person who can profit off pro-worker populism. And while I expect that degree of mindless stupidity from the average fucking Fox News viewer, I would trust lefties a little bit more when it comes to literally propagating the fake populist sentiment of a far-right commentator who is only capitalizing on the populist interests of their audience. I would expect lefties to be a little fucking better about that. My concern, and this is something I've been seeing a lot lately, is that we're headed towards the Nazbowl vortex, that there are lefties who are growing more and more comfortable with class reductionism, who are more and more comfortable abandoning progressive social causes as long as it means pushing for the workers' interests. What this inherently means, what this inexorably, suggests, is that these people believe that class solidarity and racial solidarity are either mutually exclusive or more difficult to pursue at the same time. And I could not possibly disagree more. Holy shit, that is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Are you fucking kidding me? Every single major Black liberation movement in the United States, from Malcolm X to Martin Luther King to W.E.B. Du Bois, all of them were also socialists. The concerns of the black man and of the worker are one and the same. They live in a power system that suppresses them. They live under the rule of a group of autocrats who profit from their suffering. So the idea, when you look through this history, and my God, what Martin Luther King did for socialism, when he and the Black Panther Party, another socialist organization that fought for black rights, tried to coalition build, Fred Hampton said it best, We do not want to fight fire with fire. We do not want to fight white capitalism with black capitalism. We will fight white capitalism with socialism. The rhetoric, even of these extremist groups, and the Black Panther Party was an extremist group, and I say that with a great deal of love for those people, was race and class solidarity. And it was easy for them. You know why? Because their IQ was higher than fucking 30. But there has been this increasing wave of dipshit, white, class reductionist lefties who are now acting as though Black Lives Matter is racially divisive. I've seen a lot of people doing this, Do we really want to pursue these liberal identity divides and alienate people when we could be focusing on class? Gets my fucking blood boiling. First of all, BLM isn't a race war. There are white and black folk out there on the streets protesting. There are white and black folk hiding behind riot shields, okay? While that may be a racial divide that they are protesting, the fact of the matter is that white supremacy is promoted by black people and by white people. From black people in the ghettos who are complicit and black people who are in the fucking halls of Congress who are complicit. And there are white people who are sympathetic from the halls of Congress, and there are white people out there on the streets fighting the same causes, linking arms with their brothers. Great. It's not a fucking race war. And considering the fact that the vast majority of the people in this country are highly sympathetic to the cause of Black Lives Matter, and this is still a white majority country, I would believe perhaps that BLM is not alienating people who would otherwise be engaged with class solidarity. I want you to find me. Find me this gigantic group of people. Find me this demographic of whites who are uncomfortable with black liberation, who are uncomfortable. I think the blacks had it coming. The police violence is justified, 1350. But also, they're willing to link arm in arm and overthrow capitalism. Find me this great majority. I know there are some people on the internet who are very fond of this particular framework. These Nazbuls, these literal neo-Nazis who literally want to form an ethno-state, but find me like this new untouched voter population, I'm sure it exists. I'm not denying that. There probably are racist people in this country who will never come around on BLM, but might be able to be moved over on socialism. But there ain't many of them. Whereas there are literally over 100 million people of color in this country who have shown, and repeated polling has shown this, that people of color have a higher positive disposition towards the idea of socialism than white people do. Because people of color recognize what happens to the individual when they are being subjected to a system that despises them. I am not happy with Chapo Trap House. I mean, I listen to their podcasts. I tune in. And a lot of the stuff Chapo says is very nice. The reason they get $160,000 a month on Patreon. But a lot of the stuff that they say really rubs me the wrong way. They're always downplaying liberal identity politics. Always. They complained about the mainstream media focusing on Trump's insistence on calling the COVID-19, virus the Chinese virus. And they've made some fairly disparaging comments about BLM being this liberal idpol thing. Corporations support you. I hear that a lot too. All the corporations support BLM. Wow, how radical can it be? I hear it from Nazis. Feels weird to hear it from lefties, especially since it's a dumb argument, but yeah, Amber Frost really is the worst. Now, I know the Chapo boys are aware of me, and to my knowledge, one of them is at this point unwilling to discuss this with me, which is probably to my benefit, because right now, if I was to debate a Chapo person in any sort of contentious manner, I would probably be dogpiled by the rest of the lefty internet. But can I be honest for a second? I think there's something deeply broken about the Chapo Trap House podcast. I think they're just an empty veneer of populism, a collection of buzzwords and empty sentiments that are stretched over the current political system, That they're not meaningfully engaging with the political, zeitgeist of our time. They're not involved in what's happening. They had their heart, and their heart was in Bernie 2020. And when their heart was shattered, that was it for them. And right now, what do they have? They're just edgelords. They're just left-leaning edgelords. Now, I'm not saying they don't do anything good. They certainly do. And I learned a lot from them. I've watched the Chapo, the podcast, and I've watched and I've listened and I've learned. There are a lot of really interesting stuff. And the people who produce that podcast are, by and large, well-educated people who have a lot of interesting ideas, and I respect that. And I will never not respect the good that they have done in in propagating, you know, like a leftist interest amongst a lot of people who might otherwise be disillusioned. But this abandonment of what they call liberal identity politics, which is actually racial solidarity, which is actually rising up against a system as unjust as the one they seem to care about, not only is it asinine and unproductive, I would argue it's actually counterproductive. Because whether you like it or not, socialism in this country is not going to come on the back of a bunch of white good old boys who are finally ready to seize the means of production after them blacks got settled. When socialism comes to this country, it's going to be a multiracial union of people pushing for it. It is going to be a wave of multiracial, multi-ethnic, multicultural solidarity working together to build a socialist country. And you're going to be left out of that if you're going to die on this hill. This liberal identity politics are dividing us. Who? How exactly? And where does that end? Should we not support trans people? Trans people are pretty contentious, you know? Like in the broader swath of Americana, even some Democrats aren't that keen on trans people. It's a fairly new issue to a lot of people. Maybe we should drop them too. Fuck yeah, oh yeah. When we're advocating for socialism, somebody asks about trans people, what do you go? Well, kind of weird. Just do whatever they want, I guess. Like, kind of like creepy. Oh, do you think like children should be able to go on hormone blockers? No, no, I don't really think so. How far back do we want to go? Gay rights? There are a lot of people in this country who think that marriage is between a man and a woman. Well, how do you feel about gay people? See, you can't do this. You can't capitulate every social position you have to please this nebulous and probably extremely small block of voters who are amicable to socialism, but not amicable to social progress. This is not an excellent hill to die on, my friends. And it never will be. But there's a group of people, or I guess I should say a pair of people, who are even worse than Chapo Trap House right now. Yeah, Stupid Poll is like like we can actually go right now on Stupid Poll, okay? Let's take a look. Stupid Poll. Sometimes I get linked in here. You know what people in Stupid Poll say about me? You know what they say? They talk about me sometimes. Sometimes I look, you know, I can't help it. You know what they say about me? They say, damn, Vosh is so based sometimes, the way he's edgy, but then he goes off talking about the trannies. That's basically what that's about the sentiment that I get. That's like, they like me when I'm edgy, and they don't like me when I'm, oh, what a time for chat to die. Well, I'm going to keep on talking anyway. They don't like me when I'm socially progressive. That just seems to be how it works. Sucks. Though I will admit that I remain a tremendous fan of these gigantic political compass Wojak, you know, things. I do admit to being a tremendous fan of that. Yeah. You know, I just realized that if I wanted to go through this subreddit and find evidence that supports my point, there we go. Welcome back. I just realized that if I want to go through and find evidence which supports my point, I'm actually going to have to read some of these posts, which is reading, and I'm not okay with it. Not all right with that. Welcome back. Happy to have you all back. Marco, we good? There we go. 4-second delay. That's okay. You know what? I'm going to bring you all up to speed. That'll refresh the stream for all of you, which means that you'll all get thrown back to, you know, immediate viewing. There we go. So, as I was saying, I think, mindlessly browsing Stupid Poll and wasn't actually making a point. Stupid Poll does do this a lot too. But right now, the people who my eyes are on the most. Jeez. Right now, the people who my eyes are on the most are Crystal Ball and Cigar and Jetty of The Rising, a Hill production. Are we all familiar with these people? I've got a lot to say about these people. Oh, we're going to get into it right now, baby. So, Crystal Ball, I'll throw it out there, is a grifting bitch. 100%. Now, if I am not mistaken, Crystal Ball has taken nearly $200,000 out of a super PAC that she designed to help progressive candidates. Can we get a? Is that still a thing? Let me see. Did that get resolved? I remember this. But thus far, nobody has benefited more financially from the group than Ball herself. Of the near $500,000 Ball raised for the group, she paid herself more than a third of that in salary, according to documents filed with the Federal Election Commission. Now, Crystal Ball is not exactly a poor person. So, if you raise $500,000 for a PAC, and then you pay yourself a third of that in salary, more than a third actually. Now most people, this is legal. I'm not accusing anyone of illegality. This kind of feels like embezzlement to me. Embezzlement's a legal term. Again, this isn't necessarily illegal, but it is, I think, morally comparable to embezzlement. Crystal Ball is to lefties what Candace Owens is to black people. Crystal Ball's job seems to be normalizing conservatism in leftist spaces. That seems to be what she does. She seems to be very good at it, too, because Crystal Ball herself is a very intelligent person, and I respect a lot of the stuff that she believes in. But, man, oh man, this show, The Rising, launched in June 2018, Rising with Krystal and Buck, but Buck left and has been replaced with Enjeti. And who is Enjeti, you might ask? Well, Enjeti is a conservative who constantly replies to and signal boosts Tucker Carlson, who talks about right-wing populism and the need for social conservatism. Oh, he's on Tucker's show quite a bit. And the goal of these two, Crystal Ball and, how does it, Sagar? Can somebody help me pronounce that? I saw some people criticizing me earlier in chat. Sagar, gotcha. Soigar, there you go. I'm getting a lot, Cigar. I'm getting a lot, I've seen like 6 different pronunciations. He used to work for Tucker Carlson. Now, I need to remind you, Tucker Carlson is not just some innocuous political figure. Tucker Carlson is an incredibly powerful and dangerous white nationalist who openly works for billionaires and disseminates false, grifty, right-wing populist rhetoric in order to appeal to a very specific audience. If Tucker Carlson had the world Tucker Carlson wanted, we would live in a white ethno-state. If we got what Tucker Carlson raved about, we would have essentially a return to the 1950s era of like union prominence, you know, slightly more worker power relative to the people who own the industries. But with regards to race and gender divisions, they would be as bad as, if not openly worse than, what we experienced then. The goal of that show, Rising, is to bridge the fucking gap for Crystal Ball to normalize and popularize class reductionist, far-right populism. That is its goal. That is the purpose of it. And I could ramble about this and how dangerous it is to have these prominent, progressive lefties throwing minority groups under the bus so they can make and grift on and steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from a broader effort to normalize far-right populism. But I don't need to, because I have a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience. Why are corporations really supporting the George Floyd protests? What an excellent question to illuminate some people's perspectives on certain issues.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Mm-hmm. That is what...
Here's our man.
What I like...
why conservatives have to care more about government. That's something I like. One of my pet causes is, look, like, we are living in a society where the culture is against you. Like, we are living in a society where, you know, the cultural elite, the commanding heights of American culture, and you're living in a society where you don't have real power there. And you're all
the cultural elite, the commanding power in American structure. Now, when I say that, I'm usually pretty specific about who I mean. Who does he mean?
also living in a society where you have corporate America. Look at these protests right now. Amazon supports the protests, right? Like, Amazon supports the protests. Citibank's CEO. It's the people with the most accumulated capital in America are also on the side of this protest. Why? Because in my view, they use identity politics and racial politics. They want to split the country along those lines. Every single day that we're talking about identity politics and having debates about race, we're not talking about.
Really want to.
So yeah, this is literally the triple parentheses argument right here. They want to split us up by race and gender and what have you. They want race war. They want everything because it keeps us from talking about class. So again, I ask you, okay? Really think about this, okay? Really think about it, okay? Right now, popular support for BLM is pretty high. What do you think would be more likely to sow racial division? Amazon supporting BLM or openly opposing it? Really think about what would lead to more cultural conflict in the United States. If the corporations in this country really wanted to propagate a race war to prevent class consciousness, passively supporting BLM by changing their logo and updating their website probably isn't. These are the multi-billion-dollar conspirators that are trying to prevent the socialist uprising, right? I feel like their investment might go a little bit beyond that. I feel like they might. Here's what Amazon could do. What if Amazon said that they believed in the great values of America, one of which is respect for the police, and that they will no longer be delivering supplies to any groups associated with BLM? There would be fucking riots. And what would they lose from that? How much money would they lose from that, really? Of the billions and billions of dollars that they make, how much exactly would they lose? Probably not that much. A small price to pay for sowing racial division across America. My argument here, functionally, is that this idea that they're doing it to promote race warfare is A, dumb, because if they wanted that, they would be taking different actions, and B, presupposes the idea that BLM is bad for racial unity in the United States of America, when, at least according to the polling, people are more united than ever before on the subject of black oppression in this country. It is doing the opposite of dividing people by race. What this man right here is saying when he means dividing people by race, what he actually means is speaking openly about racial issues. And to him, not a dearth of racial conflict is merely people being quiet about their oppression. What's that quote? Positive justice is worse than a negative peace?
Split the country along the lines? I think they just want support for their company.
Vosh, I thought you've argued capitalists split workers amongst things like race and stuff. Corporations don't deliberately do that anymore because corporations used to profit from that. Now they don't. Joe Rogan is actually about to say the only technically correct thing Joe Rogan has ever said in his entire life, okay? This summarizes why corporations do what they do. Watch for it.
But we're not talking about really want to split the country along the lines? I think they just want support for their company. And they think that it's a good PR move.
It's a good...
Nicely done, Joe Rogan. You've demonstrated a superior political and economic understanding to either of the dipshits you are talking to right now. Corporations will do what makes them money. They're not part of some crazy oligarchical mega conspiracy to secretly destroy the culture of the West to prevent socialism. They're not that smart. Nobody is. They just work on their own bottom line. And right now, because people are supportive of BLM, they support BLM. It's that simple. Corporations will not go out of their way to support a social issue unless they think that it will make them money to do so. That's it. It's that simple. Toss a coin to
Exactly.
It's a brand new move. And here's the thing is,
there's Krystal Ball.
This goes back to the coalitions of the parties, right? So the Democratic Party caters largely to these like white affluent women, basically, is like the base that they mostly. Right. I know the space well. I'm closely affiliated with the space.
That's not entirely untrue.
I see Joe Biden do
the Joga base.
I'll pay
right?
for that.
And so, for people who are more or less doing well, as things are, right? They've got their health insurance. They've got a job where they're treated like a human being with humanity. They can get their Uber Eats. They can get whatever they want on demand, right? Their way of virtue signaling is on identity issues.
Virtue signaling. Now, we need to be really careful with our language, especially language like virtue signaling, when Joe Rogan has such a mixed audience. Now, if I were to say something like, Amazon is virtue signaling by supporting BLM, I think most of you understand what I'm saying by that. When I say virtue signaling, I'm saying it's an empty social gesture that doesn't belie actual values on their part. But what Krystal Ball is saying right here is a little bit more ambiguous. And this is the reason why conservatives will so often accuse corporations of virtue signaling anytime they do anything even remotely progressive. Their argument isn't just that the corporation is being insincere. Their argument is that the corporation is being insincere and therefore the cause is bogus. I have never heard a conservative say, oh, they're just virtue signaling, they should be more sincere.
And if you only confine the conversation on policing to let's deal with this, let's have more body cameras. If you keep it in that lane, that's very comfortable for them, right? If you have a broader conversation about a society that, has decimated unions, has decimated working class power, about who has power in the society and why.
Look at that slimy comparison right there. Hey, what's super non-divisive and super easy in the democratic conversation?
Right. If you have a broader conversation about a society that lane, let's deal with this, let's have more body cameras. If you keep it policing to let's deal with this, let's have more body.
Yeah, policing, body cameras, those are the easy conversations that the Democratic Party wants you to have.
Working class power, conversation about a society that, has decimated unions, has decimated working class power, about who has power in the society and why. That's more of a threat to them.
But you're really challenging the Democratic Party when you do this. My dude, for one, the difficulty of a conversation does not mean how important that conversation is. And the reason why the latter is more difficult than the former is because the former you were specific and the latter you were vague. The former you said police reform and body cams. That's an easy conversation. Well, yeah, sure, because you just outlined what the conversation was. With the latter one, it was, who has power in our... So yeah, of course that conversation is more difficult. But if you want to have a specific argument over which types of policies are difficult to have, I think you'll find a lot of what BLM is pushing for here is not exactly comfortable to any political party in this country. Yeah, defund the police, the super well-accepted, Democratic Party approved position, except even Bernie Sanders said it was too radical for him.
So yes, for corporate brands, it's very comfortable to have let's have a diversity initiative. It's less comfortable to say, no, let's actually value the worth of everyone. Let's actually have a different set of power. Let's actually not have corporations able to give unlimited money and buy off our politicians and then be able to go work on your boards, et cetera, et cetera.
Notice how every easy, superficial, virtue signaling thing she talks about has something to do with race. And every difficult, serious, substantial issue she brings up has to do with class. The way she is subtly delegitimizing the severity of race or gender-based issues in this country.
That's a very non-threatening conversation. Yeah. That's how you end up with, was it Bank of America who sponsored the movement continues?
Yes, a Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. The
Bank
movement continues with DeRay McKesson, who's a prominent activist.
To be cynical, is there another reason why Amazon would support this protest? That this is kind of the death of retail. I mean, this is one of the final nails in the coffin of retail. When you think about...
And Joe Rogan's back to saying dumb shit. the fucking protests have nothing to do with the success of retail. What the fuck does that mean? Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I take it back. He might be referring to COVID. I thought he was referring to the protests, like, because people are, like, smashing shop windows, it's the death of retail or something. But no, okay, sorry. If he's talking about COVID-19, then it's much more than that is a blow against traditional retail.
Absolutely.
Investing your money in a brick and mortar store with a glass window after all this horse shit.
Wait, never mind. I'm sorry, Joe. I was being real charitable there. Never mind. All right, sorry. I tried to be charitable. Okay, never mind. He actually thinks that retail is going down because windows are shatterable. All right, never mind. Okay. We're back in the correct timeline, the one where the shit he says is really dumb.
Look, I won't cite who told me this, was a very prominent person in the field of economics, and was like, my conspiracy theory is that Jeff Bezos wants 10 to 15% unemployment, because then what's the best job in the world, Joe? In a rural place? Amazon warehouse.
He's the guy dropping off those bricks.
What? Why would you need 10 to 15% unemployment to invest in building Amazon warehouses in communities with low... What the fuck does that mean? 10 to 15% unemployment, that's like 60 million people unemployed. What? His broader point is true, though? No. The implication that Jeff Bezos is funding the protests? No.
He's the one that's, who's better at delivering shit than Amazon?
Right. There you go.
But
there you go.
Amazon Prime delivering pallets of bricks.
You should be more cynical.
See, like, yeah. No, I mean that capitalism needs an unemployed underclass. Yeah, 3 to 5%, not of 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% unemployment would be devastating for our economy, and it is presently. 3 to 5% unemployment is frictional unemployment, which is, economically valid.
Cynical, because that, I mean, look, how else do we get to a point where, like, the Shell Gas Company sponsors a 1619 Project event with Nicole Hannah-Jones?
I don't know what that is.
So the 1619 Project, oh man, this is a real rabbit hole. So this is this is the New York Times put out this thing. The 1619 Project is the year that the first slaves were brought to America, and it was about reforming the way that we talk about race and slavery in America. And so the very first essay which she wrote, which is very controversial, is when she claimed that the reason for the American Revolution was because people wanted to keep their slaves, not because...
Is this what that PragerU video was about? When did this Joe Rogan thing go live? It went live on June 3rd, and the PragerU video came out a few weeks afterwards. So is this where... Okay, so I just want it to be made clear. I have never in my life before heard the argument that the American Revolution had anything to do with keeping slaves. But then I made that comment on stream, and some historians actually messaged me and sent me data on how, yes, that was part of the reason. Because even though the British Empire had not outlawed slavery until 1819, I think, the British Empire was imposing stricter legislation on the treatment of and the transportation of slaves, and there was a political machination in the works for slavery to be abolished. And they saw the writing on the wall, and one of the reasons why they wanted to break off is because many of the landed gentry in the 13 colonies recognized that if they were still part of the British Empire, when that happened, their slaves would also be yeeted away from them. Yeah. So that's actually... now, I don't know if that's historical consensus, but from what I've looked at, that's actually... it's a fairly compelling argument. And it makes sense, too. For example, one of the reasons that the Founding Fathers also led their little revolution was because there were, I mean, we know this, there were tax benefits for them. No taxation without representation. Well, people like Washington had representation. They were extremely wealthy and prominent aristocrats from the, from England before coming over to the New World. So there was a tax benefit for them to secede as well. Now, none of these are the single reasons why. The American Revolution probably has like a million reasons why it actually happened, but I think there's an argument to be made. In 1772, English courts ruled that slaves on British soil were freed, if I recall correctly. Is that true? 1772. Free. Yep. Mansfield ruled in 1772 that no master ever was allowed here in England to take a slave by force to be sold abroad because he deserted from his service. Yeah, so... Yeah, that was right around the time of the Revolutionary War, so it's possible they saw the writing on the wall, you know? Anyway, it's a complicated historical issue. I'm just saying there is some legitimacy to that argument. I'm not a historian, and I haven't looked at enough data for me to concretely decide, you know?
Because of, control from England and all that. What happened is that a bunch of very prominent historians on the American Revolution, the Civil War, and much more panned the essay. They said this thing needs to be corrected. They corrected it. Even then, she still won the Pulitzer Prize for journalism, or for commentary, I want to say, for that specific essay, which was there. And they partnered, I think, was with the Pulitzer.
Wait, what's the point so far? A person wrote an essay and got a Pulitzer? Where does this get populist?
Center in order to create curriculum that schools are now using to teach. Now, this was attacked, the 1619 Project, not at first by conservatives. Of course, conservatives were pissed off. It was attacked by by the World Socialist website, by Trotskyites, by Marxists and socialists. And the reason why is because they saw it for what I see it, which is that it's a cynical attempt in order to say America is an irredeemably racist nation.
What? What the? Okay, listen, I can't speak to the brainworms or whatever Marxists or Trotskyists or whatever said this. First of all, I should note that this person is a co-host to Krystal Ball, a very prominent progressive political pundit, unironically making the argument that we should erase American history or not consider it because it makes us look bad with regards to racial treatment. And he's throwing this cover like, actually, it wasn't the conservatives, it was the Trotskyists who made this criticism. The argument that America's revolution might have in part been inspired by a desire to keep slaves has nothing to do with America being irredeemably racist. Nothing is irredeemably anything. Every country has had a racist past. I mean, find me one that hasn't, but that doesn't mean we can't, push it forward. This is the most cynical attempt to rope lefties into thinking they should agree with conservatives that we should erase history. This is literally just like people like Ben Shapiro making the argument well, when they teach about slavery in the history books, they're not really teaching you about history, they're teaching you how to hate your country. It is the same argument. It's insane to me.
That is the only single and most pressing problem that we have in our society. And if
Nobody has made that claim, and I guarantee you the essay did not make that claim. That is the only... if somebody can find me the 1619 Project and find me a line from it where it says that racism is the only issue in America, I would be fucking delighted.
You hold that frame, then you don't ask questions about corporate power.
Nobody holds that frame. Again, this is the lie of the Nazbol. The idea that racial solidarity and class solidarity are mutually exclusive. You can't simultaneously believe in socialism while also believing that America is a racist country that needs to be addressed in that sense.
In America, you don't ask questions even of leaders. A friend of our show, Zed Gilani, had a fantastic appearance on our show. I really encourage everybody to go watch it, where he talks about, if you look at the black community in America, which is what had the most pressing impact on their life economically and destroyed so much of their livelihood, it was the foreclosures under Barack Obama, and it was the wipeout of black home ownership and black wealth.
It was fucking slavery. What? Oh yeah. That's truly the heart of the black condition in America. The heart of their exploitation truly was Obama-era foreclosures. 100%. It was absolutely the 2007 financial crisis. 100%. That's truly... If you dig that, back in 2006, black people were doing hunky-dory, okay? Obama runs around, foreclosures following the financial crisis. Damn, racism happened again. What the fuck fuck are you talking about? The only reason those foreclosures disproportionately affected black people was because of generational poverty following from slavery and the Jim Crow laws. The only reason those foreclosures were racially prejudiced was because they were building on economic prejudice that came from slavery. Or was slavery just a class issue, perhaps?
That the 1619 Project and the framework of politics, that original sin, which of course is the
Original sin. This is literally a PragerU talking point. Krystal Ball is supposed to be a fucking progressive. This is literally a PragerU talking point. The regressive left believes that every white man carries with him an original sin. You were born privileged, you were born white, and this is nothing you're ever going to be able to apologize for. This is I've heard this from the lowest IQ conservative arguments, and this is being used to justify right-wing economic populism. And Krystal Ball, the progressive, is just sitting there letting this happen. This is her co-host.
The original sin is the be-all, end-all for why we are where we are today, absolves current political leaders.
Nobody has ever said that.
And recent political leaders like Barack Obama himself, or like leaders in the city of Atlanta, or leaders in the city of Baltimore. And
oh yeah, Black Lives Matter types are huge fans of Obama and the city leadership in Baltimore and Atlanta. Oh yeah, racial progressives in this country, if there's any group of people they're fans of, it's the leadership in Baltimore. He's just imagining, like, these people, he's just imagining a group of people who are so blinded by false race politics that they will ignore any class analysis. But this is being done by people like this fucking guy who will ignore any race politics to the benefit of his class politics. Except by way of being a conservative, I guarantee you that this guy is not actually a socialist.
And that it absolves public policy which is non-racial. And so when I say that, why does Shell Gas Company feel comfortable sponsoring an event in which the main message is that America is an irredeemably...
Nobody said irredeemable. Find me the 1619 thing right now. Chat, right now. Bring it up. I'm not joking. Where is it? 1619 Project? Give me a link. The New York Times link is not working for me. Full issue? Here we go. New York Times Magazine. Here we go. The whole goddamn thing. Is this... Ah, yes, the text. Does it work? Yes, it works. Okay, let's see if we can find the word irredeemable. Oh! They didn't say that? That's just a stupid fucking straw man narrative you're projecting? Interesting. Well, he did also make the claim that people who wrote 1619 are pushing a narrative that race is the only issue that we should be looking at. Let's see. Let's look for only. We get 67 onlys. How about only issue? Oh! Well, hey, listen. I'm not going to scroll through this entire 100-page. Yep. Just to make sure I didn't misspell it. I'm not going to search through the entire thing. Irredeemable. Oh. Yeah, it's not there. I didn't misspell it. If somebody wants to go through the whole damn thing and find me a segment where they say either that America is irredeemably racist or B, that racism is the only issue America faces, I'd be very happy to hear that. I wonder if Krystal Ball... What does Krystal Ball call herself? Krystal Ball. American political pundit and journalist. It doesn't actually say progressive. That's nice. She's being more honest. I'm serious. Candace Owens really is the... Candace Owens. Krystal Ball really is the Candace Owens of the left. 100%. But instead of a race issue, it's a class issue. It's reeling in conservatism and far-right populism by way of her association with a given group.
Racist nation, because that is one more event which is being talked about in the political zeitgeist by the cultural elite, which is not talking about their own power in the marketplace.
Notice this this vagueness, this non-specificity. Cultural elite. What does that mean to a conservative? More importantly, what does that mean to the audience? See, I don't know if this guy is a JQer. He literally worked under Tucker Carlson, so it's not exactly an impossibility. But what about the audience? Do you think the audience might be interpreting something other than that which this person actually believes? Do you think he would care if I pointed it out to him?
And if you look at what is the predominant control in your life in America, it is about capital. It's not about race. It's about class. But class disproportionately affects people.
It's about both. There is no harm in recognizing an intersectional approach. Like I said, black revolutionaries have been the vanguard of socialism in this country for 100 years. They have been the forefront. So how can would you do that to MLK? Would you go, or fucking Fred Hampton, like, hey dude, you're a socialist, you're a Maoist, that's super cool. Do you think you could drop the race stuff? I think your movement would really benefit from the inclusion of people who are uncomfortable with racial equality.
People of color in America. And so the way I look at it is that identity politics is so cynically grafted on by the billionaire and the corporate class. There's a reason they're all.
Remember, because corporations cynically profit from involving themselves in social movements, that means all forms of race and gender-based advocacy are cynical and hollow. Remember, it's literally a PragerU argument, literally a Nazi argument. I hear this shit from Nazis. Oh yeah, dude. Nobody actually fucking cares about fucking trans, whatever, just corporations, just with fucking Trans Pride Month, yeah. Nobody actually gives a fuck. I hear this shit from them all the goddamn time. And it's just being regurgitated, ad verbatim. Krystal Ball, you okay over there? You want to step in?
All super woke. It's because they want it to be this way so that we don't talk about their power in our society.
Ah, yes. The trans and black communities, very well known for being subservient and complicit to corporate power. The groups that benefit most from this cynical corporate support are also the groups who are most disproportionately socialist. So they're obviously not succeeding in distracting people from class issues. Black people are significantly more disposed to socialism than white people in this country. Transgender people are significantly more disposed towards socialism than cisgender people in this country. But when corporations throw up trans and BLM flags, they aren't doing it to dissuade people from class consciousness. They're not that competent. They're doing it to make some money. They're doing it so they get featured in a Time article on woke corporations. They're doing it so they don't get a bunch of people on Twitter canceling them, okay? They're doing it because it makes sense for them to do it, not because it's part of some nefarious fucking scheme. One of the worst tendencies of left or right-leaning populism is the ascription of every social force to some sort of deliberate and malicious narrative. The point, the fucking essence of Marxist analysis of class is that these biases can continue to manifest in the absence of maliciousness. That's the point. It wouldn't be a very good system if oppression could only be brought about by a cabal of hyper-sociopathic dipshits at the top. That would be an unsustainable system. You would only need one morally competent person at top to fix it. No, the real nefariousness of this system, of racism, of sexism, and of capitalism is that it can be propagated by well-meaning actors who aren't acting maliciously, who are only acting out of their own interests and out of the dogma that they have both been fed and feed to others. This is basic class analysis. This isn't intersectional wokeness. I could be reading this to you from Capital. So for people to sit here and go like, well, it's the nefarious scheme to divide people's class interests by introducing pro-trans people. No! That's not how it works! Fuck you. Read Marx. Read all theory, as I have.
And I think this was a very cynical, like, the way this all happened is kind of crazy because it started out in the sociology departments in the 1970s of all.
Started out in the sociology. Call me out, baby. Call me the fuck out, you fucking smooth-brained cunt. God, I would love to get one of you on my fucking show. I don't have a show, I have a stream. On my stream.
All of these crazy, you know, these from the post...
Crazed.
From the 60s era. They were, you know, in these sociology departments. And they started...
This is the Frankfurt School argument. This is literally postmodern neo-Marxists. These were socialists. This guy's literally regurgitating a Nazi conspiracy theory, the Frankfurt School of socialists that ended up infiltrating academia in our sociology and criminology departments. This is literally a Nazi argument, but the Frankfurt School people were socialists. They just applied class critique and critical theory to other forms of social ale. And they were based as fuck.
Cranking out all these absolutely crazy papers around, you know, feminism. And
oh, find me one of those crazy papers. Find me one of them. All these crazy papers on yeah, very intellectual.
Identity politics, racial politics, all of that. And then what happened?
What's crazy about them? These are literally just papers on the existence of sexism and racism in this country.
What happened is that corporate America and other cultural elites, first of all, were being indoctrinated in the university system. They were going.
Corporate elites were being indoctrinated by Frankfurt School-inspired sociology classes. Oh yeah? Yeah, fucking J.P. Morgan is being fielded by somebody who took fucking Soch in college? Are you fucking kidding me? This is a Nazi argument! This is literally just Nazism! This is just the JQ if you just ignore the Jewish bit.
Going to go work at places like McKinsey and others, and they brought their racial politics and their identity politics with them. But that there had to be a recognition from the top, from people like Goldman Sachs. If Goldman Sachs...
Holy shit! Of all the elites in this country, he chose Goldman. This is just the JQ! Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah, all of them are totally getting indoctrinated by fucking social studies courses. Jesus Christ. Please, God, mention, oh God, oh my God, please, mention fucking Kushner. I'm ready.
If the pressure on them is to stop the way that they trade derivatives or to put a black person on their board while they continue to, you know, do the derivatives trading, they're going to choose that every single time.
Right.
So they want to direct the conversation in that direction. It absolves them for the sins, both, you know, towards the economically disenfranchised in America, but it's also a very cynical tool, which is that
this is the most dumb, brainlet fucking argument. This would be like, this means that anytime a corporation does something good, it's a sinister plot to distract people from the actual thing they should be focusing on, and also it's working. There is no logical through line here. What if they just got more racially progressive because they realized that America was changing and they were adopting their power structures to, you know, get less hate? And then, as America gets more actively socialist, they're going to fight against that specifically. It's not like this one-off thing. Back during the 1960s and 70s, that was the Black Panther Party. That was, do you think the radical socialists of the time were like seeing them get black people on the board of executives and going like, oh yeah, that's enough. That's good enough. There is no logical through line here, but the degree of open conspiracism is insane. Are you guys comfortable with me saying like Krystal Ball is a Nazbol or like a Nazi sympathizer? This is insane. I haven't watched this before. I watch everything with you guys for the first time. This is an unbelievable like adherence to a Nazi conspiracy theory.
why is it that you see all these corporations, tweeting out Black Lives Matter, Instagram blackout, all that stuff?
Because it makes them money. That's it. It's not that complicated. Read Marx. That's why corporations do shit.
How is it that you see Nike? Isn't this the great irony that Nike, went and did the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, the ad campaign, and they still got all their shit looted in this most recent thing?
How do I parse this one? So, First of all, oh man, there's so much for me to go over here. First of all, Nike already sold all of their shoes to the outlets that are selling Nike shoes, so they still make money. Most Nikes aren't sold at Nike stores. They're sold to other outlets, so they already got the sale. They already made the money from the sale. Second of all, doesn't this indicate your whole conspiracy theory doesn't work? That even if corporations do make cynical, soak-just, like, gestures, they're still not going to be, like, spared from, like, antagonism? Third of all, I'm pretty sure that typically speaking, rioters and looters don't really choose which corporations to loot based on what ad campaigns they ran like a few years ago. Fourth of all, the saying they got all their shit looted from an anti-Black Lives Matter class reductionist conservative makes me feel like this motherfucker would use the phrase blacks are chimping out, like in 2016. I don't know. Listen, that's a little bit of inductive reasoning on my end. I'm pretty positive that's this guy's thought process right now. That's why he thinks this is so funny. Pretty sure his approach towards this is one motivated by let's say not a neutral and ambivalent perspective on black criminality.
Chicago, right? I mean, I think that's the perfect example of they try to cynically use identity politics in America, split people apart to protect their power. And if we
Except it doesn't work and you have no evidence of it working and everything you just said is baseless conspiracy. And even if it did work, even if they were doing that for that reason, that wouldn't mean we should abandon social justice causes. It would just mean we should stop listening to corporations, which nobody does anyway. And everyone makes fun of corporations for cynically promoting social justice. Even people who are part of the groups that are being promoted there. Black people, go on black people Twitter. Do you think they're all like, whoa, dude, Apex Legends supporting Black Lives Matter. I guess they're totally okay now. Do you think that's what they're doing? Everyone makes fun of the corporations for this. It's just considered a symbolic gesture. No, there are not people who are being knocked off class wokeness by fucking adverts at the beginning of web pages.
Start to understand that it's a lot more about class in America than it is about race.
It's about both! It's about both! It's not a competition!
I'm not saying that there is not racial problems in America, racism, that, all of this, but that if you focus on these class issues, it's the best way to help people, to people who are disenfranchised, who are disproportionately people of color, but to help everybody. That's a much more, I just don't know how else we can live.
What if we did both because they aren't mutually exclusive and it doesn't hurt us to do both? This is like talking to a fucking person who's not voting for Biden. Wow, dude, you just want to vote for Biden, cuck yourself to the establishment? Why don't you do direct action? You can do both! Just do both! Both things! Just do both!
In a multifaceted nation like this, which is, economically heterogeneous, ethnically, people, so many people of different ethnicities, so many people of different religions, I am the son of Indian immigrants. I feel fully and completely.
Whoa, why are you id-pulling this conversation, you fucking hack? Aren't you a business owner, you piece of shit?
American. That's an amazing thing. That didn't just happen. It was the product of a result of very specific political.
Way to divide the movement. There were probably a lot of working class white Joe Rogan fans who are watching this, and now they've been informed that you're ethnic. They probably don't give a fuck much about your social message. I really think you should reconsider this, the extent to which you're willing to dilute your class message with vacuous idpol. What, your parents were Indian? What does that matter? Whatever experiences they had that were negative were probably more motivated by class than by race. Why is this relevant to this conversation at all? Are you trying to get woke points? Is this virtue signaling?
Political choice.
Just so you guys know, what my little meme just there was literally identical to what he's doing to the broader political conversation. Literally. It's literally the exact same thing. I'm not parodying it. I'm just doing it the other way.
Choices that we made over time. And it's moving towards that we need to go towards. And that's what, but by doing so, what you've talked about many times, about economic, not just distribution, but about the power, who has power in society, working class or not.
Yeah.
Which is the corporate America can use the identity politics in order to make sure the working class doesn't continue to have power.
And hey, you know what? Racist people can use class politics as a way of obfuscating racial identity. Except, whoa, they're doing it right now. on the Joe Rogan show. That's incredible. Wow. People obfuscating and suppressing a social movement to the benefit of another movement? I'm gonna fucking kill myself, dude. I can't believe this. I have to get Krystal Ball on my fucking stream. I will do anything to roast this piece of shit. I know this fucking guy, I actually forget his name right now. I know this fucking guy would be like an easy walkover, but people don't simp for him. People simp for Ball. I need to go for Ball. I can't fucking believe how bad these people are.
And so you can't separate class and race because it's not an accident, of course, that black and brown people are disproportionately the lower income. And
we finally stepping in after 10 minutes of conspiracism?
Poor and working class in society. I mean, I see it much more simply, sort of like what you were saying. It's virtuous. This is like a branding exercise, right?
No, never mind.
So, yeah.
And there's this whole idea, I always think it's hilarious on the right of like Facebook and Twitter are progressive or they're liberal companies or Amazon's a liberal company. I'm like, what are you talking about? Amazon treats their workers like shit. They bust unions. Like, this is not a left company, right? But because they use those sort of branding tools and tweet out Black Lives Matter, which is no threat to them. And in fact, as you're pointing out, may very much benefit their bottom line.
Yeah, that's why they do it. No shit. They do it because it benefits their bottom line, not because it's part of some 19D chess plan to split people up and create a race war. If you have an issue with people believing Amazon is a progressive company based on their stupid little virtue signaling whatever, I criticize corporations for doing that all the time. But you realize getting rid of corporations for doing that, or getting rid of corporations doing that, or failing to acknowledge the social problems that corporations are making vague gestures at, isn't going to make those liberals on Facebook socialist. By the way, they had Andy Ngo on their show and they didn't push back at all. Holy fuck, is that true?
A journalist who was attacked during a clash between the Proud Boys and Antifa in Portland, Oregon.
Jesus
last month. At Capitol Hill
Christ.
this week, Andy Ngo is in D.C. in order to discuss the extremist movement.
This comes just days after 2 Republican senators introduced legislation that would later.
Andy Ngo is literally a fascist. His banner art was done by Stone Toss. There's video recordings that were out at the time of this recording showing him working with a group of fascists to plan an attack on another group of people unprovoked. And he was with them and he had his camera off.
Label Antifa, quote, domestic terrorists. Andy was one of 3 people who ended up in the hospital
Oh,
after being
no.
beaten in the June brawl. Police later made 3 arrests in connection with the incident. And Andy joins us now to discuss his visit to Capitol Hill, as well as continued clashes between Antifa and the far right. He's an editor at Quillette. Andy, it's great to have you here. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
First of all, how are you doing?
As your viewers can see, the cuts and bruising on my face have mostly nothing was done, even when a suspect was identified.
Old, elderly citizens. In many ways, they're the ones who are provocative and who are violent. They're organized. And they're the darlings of media. You have CNN's Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon defending these people. And then they go and attack you. And what? We hear nothing about it.
This is literally them attacking Antifa and defending Andy Ngo.
Do you worry that your work provides a false equivalency?
I'm so glad you brought up this point. Thank you.
Let's ask a really easy softball question that he can respond to because he's been trained to respond to it.
You know, I'm not working to bring some type of parity in this.
Yeah.
Just a week and a half ago, this didn't get very much attention. An Antifa militant in Tacoma, Washington, which is close to Portland, firebombed a government facility.
That's right.
He attempted to, according to police, ignite a 500-gallon propane tank, and he had a rifle that he allegedly aimed at.
I remember that one guy. They used a fucking video clip.
Prince Andrew.
They used a video clip from Project Veritas in this video as a source.
Andrew is one piece of the puzzle in the story of Jeffrey Epstein. But he and the British royal family appear to have played a very key Kate's wedding, of course. Prince Andrew is one piece of the puzzle in the story.
Where is it in here? I don't see it. That's his monologue, not a news segment? Gotcha. Well, where's the... I think he just linked me a random timestamp. I don't see it. Somewhere in that 11-minute video.
Coma police and was killed in the frame my story in a partisan way. I mean, stripping away the views that I have. At the end of the day, what happened was somebody who works as a journalist was attacked.
This is, I can't overstate how severe this is. At the time, everything we know about Andy Ngo now was known to Krystal Ball. This is literally just them platforming a person who is openly a fascist and works with neo-Nazis, allowing him and abetting him in attacking Antifa while lying about the nature of certain interactions and clashes that he's had. Also, his accent is fake. He has never been to England. I am very comfortable in saying, following all of this, that Krystal Ball is either a Nazi or Nazi sympathetic, or at the very least is so blinded by a pursuit of populism that she doesn't give a fuck about anything else. She doesn't give a shit about anything else. I don't know, but judging from the fact that she stole nearly $200,000 from a PAC for her salary when she already makes a fuck ton of money from other sources, I think she's just a goddamn grifter. And I want this known. And I'm actually, just this fucking once, I am putting out a call to action, okay? I am putting out a call to action for all of you, okay? Krystal Ball is an enemy to our movement. I don't know what exactly Krystal Ball believes, but I know what she does. And from now on, in every engagement, in every interaction, every time she comes up, every time you're discussing her, every time you refer to her, every time it's relevant, you will express with the deepest sympathy how you feel about Krystal Ball. That's what I want you to do. Because the fact that people are treating this woman and her little fucking co-host as some sort of legitimate pro-populist blow against the corporate establishment, as opposed to what it really is disgusting to me. And what it really is nothing more than a Trojan horse to enable and propagate far-right populism, as represented by the co-host, as represented by Andy Ngo, at the expense of leftists, at the expense of people of color, at the expense of every other minority who would live under the boot of a world brought about by Andy Ngo and his fascist thugs and the Nazis he provides kill lists to. So just let it be known, all right? Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski stand her? Yep, because Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kulinski are low IQ populists who don't know anything about politics and don't actually have any principles, but they'll side with anyone who sounds sufficiently anti-corporate. That's all these people have. If somebody walks up and says that they don't trust corporations, that's all it takes for people like Jimmy and Kyle to run up to them and start sucking their cock. All right? That's true. It's just true. They have no principles. They just don't. Kyle used to stand Sargon. Wouldn't surprise me. Has it really been confirmed that Andy Ngo sent a kill list to Atomwaffen? I'm not entirely sure. Probably not, but it's a fun thing to say. And I don't really care. He openly works with Nazis. I mean, it's not exactly a completely unwarranted meme.